Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning and better sales results. All right, welcome back. Darren Mitchell here, and you're listening to a very special episode of the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. And I've got a wonderful guest coming back for the second time. And it's taken a little bit of organisation, but we finally got her back. Dipti Pandit, welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. And it's a very special day. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Hi, Darren. Thank you. And I'm really excited to be back.
Thank you. And the reason I'm saying it's special is because we've kind of been talking, you and I, about this over the last week or so. This is episode number 700 of the podcast. And it's great to have you back for what hopefully will be one of the best episodes that people are going to listen to. No pressure. No pressure. So it's great to have you back. And for those who haven't listened to the previous episode, you are the founder and chief revenue officer at Pundit Consulting. Have a very interesting background, sales history, sales leadership journey. And if people haven't listened to the episode, I really highly recommend we go back because it was titled Burgers to Boardroom. And what I'd love to do to start with, because we'll talk about a few things today in relation to your masterclasses and what you're doing in the consulting space. For those who haven't listened to the episode, just a brief background in terms of your story and what's led you here.
Wonderful. It's very exciting to be back, Darren. Thank you for the opportunity. So to talk about my background, I'm a sales leader, as I call myself in simple terms. But for the last 17 years of my career, I've been in sales leadership roles as well as sales individual contributor roles. What really brought me into sales was very early in my life, coming from a business family, the natural upbringing of, learning about revenue, customers and marketing and just discussing about business and growth. And further on, getting an opportunity to be a leader at an event and really pitching a proposition to get more funding for this event and how I managed that in 5 minutes. All of that just transpired. It just triggered that, okay, sales is my career. Now, as I look back, what has really helped me is my love for and the passion for talking, meeting people, having conversation. Sales gets stigmatized. When people look at sales, a typical persona is a white man in a coat and trying to sell cars, and I'm a bit of an anomaly. I am an Indian background, curly haired woman, very different. So essentially that's my bit of sales background. And yes, I started my own business, which is Sales Pundit Consulting. And I've been working with many businesses to helping them grow their revenue, sharpen their skills on sales strategies, helping them fix a lot of their processes, and also drive customer excellence.
Nice. And the reason I mentioned the burgers part is when you first came to Australia, you ended up selling burgers and then progressively found your way through into boardrooms and what you do today. And it's a really interesting story of I guess persistence, backing yourself, self-belief, and so forth. I'm not sure we delved into this, but I'd love to know the thought process you were going through in terms of mindset as you were going through that journey. How did you keep yourself, I guess, focused on, I guess, the next sale or the next step or the next 30, 60, 90 days and so forth? Was there any specific strategies, particularly around mindset, that you were working on that's helped you, I guess, fast track to what you're doing today?
Good question. That's the first time someone has asked me an interesting question like this, Darren. But it's a valid question. And I think what has helped me really is to be focused, is to actually have clarity of goal. Where many of us struggle is to have clarity. If you do not have a clarity, then, whether it's your grit, determination, fire in the belly, and then actions that you want to put in cannot work. So first and foremost is clarity. And to get clarity, you need to go through a process, right? Whether it is I'm doing a brainstorming strategy, or I'm doing a whiteboard analysis, whether I'm having conversation with friends. So having clarity of the goal, because the moment you have clarity, you've eliminated a lot of things which you do not want to do,
Mm.
because that gives you then a direction.
Mm.
Once a clarity is established, then you start working on the actions, and then you get to it. Um, Second thing that's important is the grit and the fire in the belly. I always highlight about the fire in the belly,
Yeah.
because your grit, determination, perseverance, everything is an outcome of that. And there has to be valid reason, right? You just cannot say, oh, I just want to achieve it. The moment you start putting your emotions and you start really persevering that with all your intention, that's when the action and everything starts to flow. It's very much like, if you really aspire for something, leave it to the universe, and the universe will work for you. It all happens only when you have that clarity and fire in the belly. So for me, having utmost clarity, then followed by actions and being focused, is important. There are situations when I do get digressed, but then I come back in my morning meditations. I try and assess and see, okay, what's working, why not, why things haven't worked for me. Okay, let me just do this analysis and figure out what's not working. Sometimes when you want to achieve a particular thing or a task, whether it's your, giving a proposal to a client, or having that strong conversation, or winning that deal, you need to be focused, right? But then when you're focused, you have to eliminate distractions as well.
Yeah.
That can only happen when you start listing down, okay, what's bothering me, what is the hindrance, and then figure out what's important, and start working on getting those distractions off.
So because I love the way you talk about fire in the belly, and you think about most salespeople you would think are naturally ambitious, want to achieve, have to demonstrate grit, um, tenaciousness, persistence, resilience, and stuff like that. What do you say to people, and we'll get into the reason why I started your consulting business shortly. What do you say to people who are going through the motions, they're doing it. Maybe it's a lack of clarity, maybe it's something else. It's just not working for them, right? They're just falling short, or they're not quite getting the take up or the interest. What sort of advice do you give to those sort of people? Because they're probably really good people. They've probably got a really good product or service. They may be clear on what they're trying to achieve, but for whatever reason, it's just not working for them.
I call this as the blind mirror scenario. It's like that blind spots, because you think that you're going in the right direction, you're in the best of the cars, you're having best of the tires and the fuel, you're a very experienced driver, but you're still not going to the direction, you're not heading to that direction. So probably something's coming your way which you're not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So for this, I would highly recommend a couple of things. First and foremost, find a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I just cannot express more of how important it is to have a mentor in a life. Whether you're paying for a very professional mentor, or you have someone in your knowledge, that someone whom you can reach out to, someone who's more experienced and
Yeah.
probably has gone through that journey as a mentor. So having a mentor is the first foremost thing to do. If you are still not achieving results, then probably you need to change the mentor. So make sure that you're having the right mentor who can kind of give you those directions, show you those blind spots which you're not seeing, probably show you the mirror.
Yeah.
Next, I would say is be involved in networking, reaching out to people, having those conversations. We speak a lot about networking, and there is absolutely that value. But when you take some of these critical questions and you discuss with someone who's experienced, they're going to show you a different aspect which you've not thought of.
Mm.
So it's important to have those conversations. And this reminds me, I had a scenario last week where I was hitting a wall with, this proposal that I was trying to do. And I had a similar scenarios where I'm trying to pitch and this solution wasn't working for me. I happened to meet someone senior in that area and he gave me some fantastic insights. That was something which I hadn't thought of.
Yeah.
But I was comfortable enough. I trusted that person, very senior executive. I had a conversation. I expressed to him, look, this is the pattern I'm seeing. I'm not getting results. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I did this particular thing I felt which was a step up. So in my head, I did everything possible. Still, I haven't had that success. And
Yeah.
the picture that he presented to me was like, oh wow, I never thought of this. Well, this could be the thing. So probably that would be my recommendation, Darren.
Yeah. Nice. So mentoring, networking, and probably asking questions, and probably self-reflection as well, and trying to look at things maybe from a completely different perspective. And it reminds me, as you were talking, John Maxwell, who I love, and he talks a lot about leadership. He's always asking the question, so what's missing? So what are we missing? So presupposing there's something that is missing, but sometimes when you ask that question and you look at it from multiple different perspectives, maybe there isn't anything missing, but at least by asking that question, you can sign it off, which is really interesting.
Right. But don't burn yourself or don't really hate yourself for not achieving something. There is definitely something that's going wrong. Because many a times you think that, oh, I've done everything possible. This hasn't done. What is it? It's the wrong time and whatnot. I'm sure you're missing something you're not aware of. The moment you get to know it, it's going to be a light bulb moment.
Absolutely. And as you say, it's often a blind spot, and it's called a blind spot because often we don't know we have a blind spot. And it's not necessarily a weakness. And this is the one thing I want to make sure we understand is people have strengths, but they also have some blind spots or areas for development. So getting somebody, as you say, to put the mirror up and maybe let you have a look at some things that you've seen before is actually a really good thing. And it's good feedback, really good feedback.
True, true, true. You know what is worse in this situation is when you start to get overconfident. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm feeling that, "Oh, I've done everything possible," and if you sway into overconfidence, then
Yeah.
that's bad. You always need to leave that 10% doubt in your head that, probably I've missed something or there's
Yeah.
an opportunity to do better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we look at what you do now, and setting up the consultancy and working with organizations, love to know what was it? Was there a catalyst? Was there something that you noticed in the marketplace that there was a gap? What's driven you to start the consultancy? And let's talk about also the problems that you solve.
Sure. As I mentioned to you, I come from a business family. So there has been that entrepreneurial spirit in me. For a very long time, I tried to keep that away and focused a lot on my corporate career. Late last year, I decided that I'm going to take a break from the corporate world. And start of this year, I did a bit of research and tried to figure out that, okay, what do I want to do next? So I had the opportunity to try the entrepreneurial dream that I had. And for the larger part of my career, while I have cracked large deals, I have looked at building strong teams and performance. What I've noticed is organization focus a lot on the people
Hmm.
and, oh, you have to perform, you have to get the revenue, you have to get the numbers in. I don't care a crap, right? But they seldom look at, okay, do we have the right tools? Do we have the right processes? You can have best of the people. It's
Hmm.
like having a good axe and you want to probably chop the tree. But if it's not sharpened enough, it's not the best quality. It doesn't have AI.
That's
It
it.
not, you won't be able to really do it well. So through my experience in working in across diverse organizations, and trust me, I've worked across large and small organization, one common problem that I've seen, which I would always fix, or people would tap on my shoulder was, oh, these processes, or how can we be efficient at? So I would look at processes and figure out, okay, there is opportunity to make things better. Because when we talk about salespeople,
Mm,
right, we have fantastic salespeople. These are self-driven, passionate people. They love talking to customers. They love numbers. They love the revenue. But what really comes their way, or what the barriers are, is when you do not have the right processes and when you do not give the right tools.
mm,
You cannot have a salesperson burdened with admin work and age-old systems and stuff. So I thought, okay, well, if this is my specialty, if this is what I can really do well, why not let me start help businesses? So I focus on the sales enablement side of things in
mhm.
my business. So I work with organizations to help improve their processes, the technology, and people. So that's primarily in terms of sales enablement. The other thing that I help is around sales strategy.
Mhm.
I meet a lot of business leaders who have had a brilliant idea, who've rolled out the product and who running sales. So they are doing good, but they're burnt out. So they need someone who can really come and do the job for them. So I also work in fractional capacity
Mhm.
where they hire me for a selected period of time and I'm working straight away from day one onwards. So having had the experience in sales, front end, sales processes, doing the pricing, revenue, go to marketing strategy, all of it, you get a person like me who is hands on from day one. I'm just trying to work on what your challenges are, free up the time of this person. The advantage for the organization is that you're not investing a lot of money in hiring a full-time person. You're paying a fractional amount for
Mm.
this fractional executive for a short period of time. And
Yeah.
the third bigger element that I work is the coaching and mentoring. So I coach and mentor and do a whole lot of upskilling for sales leaders, sales teams, and also for aspiring sales professional.
Mhm.
I think we can talk about what we mentioned about my masterclass. So I conducted a masterclass last month, and there will be series of upcoming masterclass in the coming months.
Nice. There's a lot in that, and talking about sales enablement, I was actually on a podcast probably about 3 months ago, and he was talking to me about sales enablement and how in a lot of organizations, marketing and sales don't necessarily talk together. Um, Bigger organizations, they might have some better processes, but they might be weighed down by too much internal bureaucracy and stuff like that. In the market in 2024 that you're looking at, is there one sort of area of sales enablement that is really a key problem that many organizations are not necessarily spending enough focus on, that if we can focus on that, we can actually turn some things around pretty quickly?
I would give a tip to a lot of business leaders and sales leaders is to just jump on a call and have conversation or just listen how your salespeople are actually pitching the service and solution. Or if there is an event and how are they actually cracking the leads. Look at the basics, right? Because at a sales leader's level, you think, I have the people, I have the process, everything's working fine. But is everything well connected? Like you
Mm.
said, things are working in silos.
Yeah.
So that problem still exists. Even in
Mm.
2024, you feel you've hired the best people. You need something that connects and that's seamlessly working.
Mm.
So the best way to really identify that problem is just check or probably hire people. There are organizations who do the what do you say ghosting and who act as those fake customers. So just ring and say how long
The
it takes.
mystery shopper.
The mystery shopper. They've got the right word. Because I'll give you an example. For this particular organization, we were just working on the lead and the processes. And I was comparing the lead from the time someone rings for requesting, that's the time your lead starts from there, right?
Yeah.
Till, till someone outcalls the customer and really discusses and presents a proposal. Normally, there shouldn't be more than 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour because the speed at which you get back to the customer
Mm.
determines are you going to crack the deal or not. This particular organization I was working with took 48 hours. So that's where you're losing a lot of customers because your
Yeah.
competitors are far ahead.
Yeah.
So what exactly is missing in these processes? Are things working? Because
Mm,
you can talk about technology, you can talk about the latest tools and everything, but if your basics are not done right, then that's not going to help. So even there are fundamental basic processes which are not working. It's important to look at, okay, if I have to crack sales, then what exactly is going through? What are the different channels? Are they
mm.
working efficiently? Are
Yep.
they working in silos? What are the barriers that, that those need to be resolved?
And when we talk about this, because I mentioned before marketing and sales, and you can add in other departments as well. When you look at an organization and all the processes, so a 48-hour turnaround is probably not great in 2024 because people want instant response, instant gratification, for want of a better term. Um, how important is it to get everybody on the same page? And is there some tactics or strategies? Because there'll be people listening to this and say, you know what, Pandit, Dipti, I'm working in an organization that we've got this fantastic product, but we're just slow. We're slow to respond, and I can't get anybody within the business to actually come and collaborate and focus their attention on the customer. It's just really frustrating. So any tips on how to bring people together? So you mentioned before 5-10 minutes to respond versus 48 hours. How do we get an organization to come in on the same page? Is it we have to have a complete frontal lobotomy as an organization? Do we have to have the CEO come in and say, you now will actually change the way we do stuff? Or what is it? Is there a secret to it?
First and foremost is what is the company's objectives, right? The clarity at the CEO level. Yeah, of course, you cannot expect the CEO to come and have a carrot and a stick method for everybody. You need the CEO to give the directions. You need to have, what do you say, your objectives or your plans for the year. You need to have everyone on the same page. So that's number one. If there is no clarity, and if people or the leaders, because when you're talking about a CEO and you're talking about, okay, these are my plans or these are my targets for this year, these are the 10 pointer strategy which we have to achieve, what those mean to every person in that game, right? What does that mean to the sales head? What does that mean to the marketing head and the other teams? Everyone should be able to relate and connect.
Mm,
That's when it is a robust strategy. If there's a strategy and no one's really understood and there is lack of focus, what do you expect the teams to do then? It's very hard. So that's number one focus, absolute clarity. And to the what do you say, when you break that strategy further into, okay, if this is what it means for a sales head, then this is what it means for the team leader, then individual team members. That there has to be absolute clarity and flow.
mm,
And only there, that's when people are on the same page.
mm.
That's number one thing.
Yeah.
Secondly, is when you're looking at, okay, if things are not working or these are my frustration points, actually going back to basics. It's surprising that sometimes we think and we start harping on the bigger challenges. But as you start to break down and start deep diving, you'll figure out that there were really small things that have caused the issue.
Mm,
So, for example, you've probably made a big noise about this massive customer issue and something hasn't worked. But as you start to break down, and then you realize, oh, it was just probably this flip of a button or something that should have been done, or someone used the wrong word in this email and someone interpreted the email something. So, it's about really going to the basics, identifying what are your blockers, and
mm,
really going through step by step through the process.
mm.
That's to me is fundamental. But if you're not doing that, and if you're just talking at a high level on strategy and these are the problems and you're going to make noise, it's not going to help. If people have to come together, then the CEO has to play a role,
Mm.
a big way in getting the different heads or the leadership on the board, really identify the problem, start looking at what are the things that are missing, where you want to get there, and then start identifying what are the missing pieces.
Mm.
Basically, those basic processes that would be missing. Yeah.
I love the fact that going back to basics, because I think a lot of organizations, and I've seen this happen in the ones that I've worked with, they sometimes overcomplicate it, or they create process on process and don't really ask the question, why are we doing this way? What is the purpose of this? do we actually need to do this in this way? Is there a different way of doing it? And they just almost, and sometimes they look at the external environment and say, "Oh, let me get a consulting organization in because they've got a process or a methodology, and let's just plug and play that, and everything's fantastic," without really understanding, well, is this the right strategy for us? What are we trying to achieve? And sometimes it's a case of, well, you need to remove some things that we do to maybe make some improvements in terms of how you engage with your customers. So it's nuts how some organizations just put layer upon layer upon layer, and often the person who's in the bottom of the whole pile is the salesperson, because they now have expectations that are placed upon them to do more reporting, to fill out more pro formas, or for more sheets, or whatever it is. It's an internal administration burden, rather than saying, you know what, we want to make it easy for you to engage with your customers and get as many sales in as you possibly can in the quickest time frame possible. So let's make it easier, not more complicated.
Oh, absolutely. And it's when you start using the band-aid solutions,
Hmm.
the more and more band-aid you apply, it is not going to heal the wound, right? The more and more band-aid, that's just going to make it too big, not really solve the problems. Yeah, so rightly said.
Oh, it's just so funny because sales doesn't have to be complicated, right? I keep saying to teams all the time, at the end of the day, your role as a salesperson is to identify, is there a problem in the marketplace? Is there a problem that your customer actually has? And do they want to, and do they need to solve the problem? If the answer to that is yes, then you're in a good position to provide them with an opportunity of having a look at a solution. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. But funny enough, when I was studying marketing, right, there's a funny way that, like if you look at shampoo, for example, I'm probably digressing from this topic, but if you look at shampoo, it started as a cleaning agent. Probably back in the days, there was just a soap. Then you invented, say, a dandruff shampoo, and then a different shampoo for colored hair, and different shampoo for someone. So sometimes you might actually need to start creating problems or showing that there are problems, and here is my new solution.
Well, possibly.
A
I'm
new
sure there's
product.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are working for organizations that try to create a problem so their solution can be the only solution to the problem.
No, but for a basic problem solving that you need to do, any organization or whether it's your own life, absolutely, what is it that you want to achieve? Particularly, when we are in meetings and have many stakeholders, when you're trying to really brainstorm and solve something, we miss the point. Why are we here for? What is the objective? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah.
That's not clear, then you're going in circles.
Totally, totally. So I'd love your thoughts on this, because I see this a lot, and I've been guilty of it in the past as well. Salespeople and sometimes sales leaders are the biggest culprits of this, because they're so close to their own products, their own solutions, their own technology. They almost have this uncontrollable urge to speak about that in front of their customers, and try to convince them. And I say ethically manipulate, and I say that very respectfully. But they jump too quickly into the product or into the service as a lead. When we're talking about problems, how important is it, do you think, to resist that temptation when it comes to selling our services?
Absolutely. It is so important. The most important skill a salesperson should have is of listening. Because the more you listen, that's when you're going to really narrow down on what you got to sell.
Mm.
Because otherwise, you'll just come, you'll blurt out, you'll talk, you'll ramble. At the end of the day, you feel good because you've spoken everything that you had in your head, it's all out. But what impact has it made on the customer? You've just spoken things, and customers like, okay, fine, this person hasn't allowed me to speak. Naturally, a lot of salespeople, or literally 98, 99% of the salespeople that I have met, everyone loves to talk. That's why we are in these roles and we want to speak a lot. It happens to me as well. I love talking. But when you are talking to a customer, you need to listen a lot to understand, okay, what really challenges they have.
Mm.
What problems are they trying to solve? What is, you get insights from the organization. What are their plans for the future?
Mm,
Have they been approached by competitors? Because there's so much that you get to hear, right?
mm,
Secondly is you're talking to certain say certain important decision makers, right? You also have to look at how can I make life easier for this person.
yeah.
How can this person finish his work at 5 o'clock, go home on time, and take care of his kids and have a good life?
Mm,
Maybe right now he's so struggling, he or she is struggling at work and they are spending hours and hours. Is there an opportunity that I can really solve this person's problem?
yeah.
It can only happen when I can listen.
Mm,
And customers love to be heard.
mm.
So that's the basic skill. Focus on that. It's hard, but practice is important. Or maybe make a mark, just draw a dot or something on your hand. Or have some reminder to tell you, go quiet, go slow, or listen.
Well, I've often given salespeople a target or a challenge to not talk about their product in a customer meeting. And quite often it's really interesting to get their response because and I've had some directly say to me, well, what the hell am I supposed to talk about with a customer if I can't talk about my product? And that gives you a really good insight in terms of, I guess, the psychology that they have, but also potentially the training or the conditioning they've been subjected to within their organization, because it's typically all about their product. We've got to get these widgets in the hand of as many customers as possible. We've got to hit our targets, et cetera, et cetera. Versus just taking a step back and thinking, is there a problem in the market that needs to be solved? Do I potentially have a solution? And how can I figure out whether the person or the organization I'm speaking to actually qualifies to have a look at what I have to offer, and not leading with that? It's a completely different dynamic.
Oh, true. And Darren, it's important to also see what product or service you're selling.
Hmm.
Because if it's a very transactional, then it's a different story. Then probably what you're trying to do may be fair. But if you're looking at high value customers, enterprise, the large end customers, the typical area that I work is the high end, high value customers. If you're looking at solution selling, if you're selling tech, okay, and it's a customer that you also have to look after from a retention renewal point of view.
Mm,
So the time you invest in listening is very important because you never know what hints the customer is going to throw. What tips can you pick from there? There might be some small clues which you can actually take away, come back, build a strategy for this customer, and later pitch at the customer.
mm,
And that's going to be a strategic way of how you're going to manage a sale,
yeah.
because that's in the long run, that is what is going to work.
Mm,
Because if you're talking about those multi-million dollar deals or large contracts, customers not just going to look at, oh, here's the product and these are the features. Customer will really listen to, okay, this particular vendor has listened to me, they have spent time and energy, they are invested in me.
yeah.
The moment you can create that, that's only when you can look at successful deals. And more importantly is the relationship, the tenacity in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some interesting points you made there. And as you were talking, one of them I was thinking of was the fact that your customers, it's going to be very rare that a customer wakes up and says, oh, Dipti's got this fantastic solution. I think I might go and knock on the door and see whether that's available. Can I buy a few? They simply don't do that. So what they're looking for is they're looking for solutions to a particular problem. And sometimes they don't even know they've got a problem until they have an interaction with us. So if we have this attitude that it's not about our product, it's all about the customer's problem, then you'll be in a much better position to, in many cases, make a natural transition into providing a solution to that particular problem. And again, it's not going to be about the features, it's always going to be about the benefits and the impact to the customer. And then the customer starts to do the buying rather than us do the selling. So it's
Oh,
a completely different way of doing it.
that's right. Sometimes customer think, because customer is not the expert, right? They are working in that capacity. But when it comes to the solution, the technicalities of it, we have experts who
Hmm.
can actually help the customer. Sometimes customers just make up in their head that, oh, this is my problem and this is the solution.
Yeah.
And that's when salesperson, along with his team of experts or her team of experts, actually deep dive
Hmm.
to really identify what was the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened to me once. We were working with this massive customer, really like 20,000 employees, such a big organization. And We were at loggerheads at some point because the customer was constantly asking for, I want this, I want this. And we are trying to delve into to say, look, let's have a discussion, let's figure out, we are not sure if this is what exactly you want. And they were just not ready because this person was very clear and confident that this is what I want, you give it
Mm.
to me or not. Finally we got on a table, we got both the teams together, we discussed, we deep dive, had a fantastic conversation. And then we made them realize that your problem was not this, your problem was particularly that.
Yeah.
And the solve for that is this, which is not expensive, it's a quick fix. So all the story that you had built so far, thinking this was your problem, this was your potential solution, it would have costed you so and so.
Mm.
Right. So sometimes you have to get on the table to discuss all of this and really show the value to the customer
Yeah. Yeah.
and not just sell what the customer wants.
Well, and that's the thing. It's interesting how many people I talk to that say, you know what, I'm giving what the customer wants. Well, okay, that's fine, but what's your real role as a salesperson? And sales leaders listening to this need to be really clear on this as well. Often it's not a case of, you might lead with what the customer wants, and that might be the interface that you begin the conversation with, but your job is to figure out, what does the customer actually need? And they can be two completely different things. And only going through an exploration process may you actually verify that there's a connection between what the customer wants and needs, or sometimes there's a disconnection. So my role as a salesperson and my role as a sales leader is maybe to consult to them and give them the opportunity to maybe considering that what they thought they wanted is actually not what they actually need. Now, if you can do that, it may actually cost you a short-term sale, but I guarantee what it will do is you'll leave an impression upon that customer that you're there to actually provide value to them and consult to them, not simply to sell a product, because that would be easy.
That's right. And for the salesperson to be able to do that job, it's a difficult conversation, right?
Mm.
Because you are in a position where you have to listen to the customer, but
Mm.
you also have to prove a point.
Yeah.
So when it comes to these sort of discussions, it's important for an organization to invest in upskilling their teams.
Yeah.
You just cannot have the best of the salesperson you think you've hired and just put them on the job. You have to invest in making sure that this person is speaking well, asking the right question, upskilling in terms of the product, solutions, competitors,
Mm.
sales methodology, if you're particularly focused on how do you really upskill your team in that. And then also look at the processes that help the salesperson to do that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the technology and tools, all of that comes in place. But if you look at the dynamics, when I talk about you have the people, you need to have the right processes, and you need to have the right tools so that all of this functions efficiently, that your sales teams can have the right conversation,
Yeah.
get trained, upskilled, and then you're also cracking winning deals, because you're not just winning deals here. It's about your brand. How
Mm.
are your folks representing your brand to the
Mm.
customer? What value are they putting on the table? See,
Yeah.
you might lose a deal for whatever reason the customer has, but the customer has left with a very good impression.
Yeah.
They're likely to come back.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. Unfortunately, there are a lot of sales leaders that are thrust into the sales leadership role and they've been told, get the number at all costs, don't care how you do it. So they become micromanagers. So it's almost like, hey, Dipti, you had that customer meeting. You should be coming back with an order. Why haven't you come back with an order? It's all short term, short term, short term, versus we've got to learn to play more of the longer game and have a level of patience, which means we have to have enough people to be talking to over a period of time. So by the weight of numbers, we can still get our number. But not everybody's going to be in the cycle right now to buy straight away. So we've got to understand that and recognize that for some, it might take 3 weeks, it might take 3 months, but to stay in the game and continue to add service, but also asking the questions and continue to qualify, eventually you'll leave a good taste in their mouth that you'll be top of mind, that when they are in that window to purchase, you're more likely to be the person they call upon.
That's true. But I would still focus on speed here.
Oh,
If
of
you
course.
leave on, okay, everything will happen at a gradual pace of time. Yes, it will all build up, right? Everything that you're going to invest is going to build up. But when I look at speed, let's say when a salesperson is having a conversation, right? You are probably in a networking session or you are at an event. You can crack a sale anywhere. You
Mm,
can get a lead anywhere.
mm,
So you as a salesperson investing in how you representing your sales pitch, your elevator pitch, having an excellent 60-second elevator pitch is so important. And that needs a lot of practice.
Yeah,
So that is
absolutely.
also important. You never know. You might crack a customer in 4 minutes. It happened to me. I cracked a customer in 4 minutes last week. Anyways, that's for another day.
I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure it wasn't based on how, with the greatest amount of respect, how well your processes are or how good your services are. I guarantee it would have been based on being able to articulate a problem in such a way that it just resonated with the person you're speaking with.
Absolutely. It needs work
Yeah,
because you might express this is how my product or service is in the worst possible fashion.
yeah,
And to get to, okay, the worst to the better version, it needs time. It needs a lot of brainstorming. It needs a lot of decision making. It needs clarity. That's why I insist on clarity. What are you in here for? What problems are you going to solve?
yeah,
Because you need to have that niche,
yeah.
right? Things can be sharpened. No one's born with all that expertise, right? Expertise can be built. That's why getting that finesse, you
Hmm.
need an expert, you need a mentor, you need a pundit to come and,
Well,
make that expert.
well, there you go. And the other thing with that is, and some people may disagree with me on this, but I'm often saying to people, hey, go and get the market to give you feedback as well, because if you test and measure, you'll get feedback and you can refine, it can help get even clearer because what you'll start to get is perspectives from people and organizations that are not in your direct world, but are looking at you from more of an objective or disassociated position that can give you feedback in relation to is your messaging hitting the mark? Are you able to articulate the problem that you solve? And if you can, awesome. Doesn't mean it's going to equate to a sale, but it means you're on the right track. If it doesn't, then you might be able to refine it and continue to get that feedback. Versus sitting down and just pontificating and thinking and rewriting stuff and not really testing it in the marketplace. So you've got to test it.
Oh, absolutely. I was
Yeah.
at one particular event and met this salesperson, and he says to me, um, my software does everything. I'm like, oh my God, couldn't there be a worst 60-second elevator pitch? I said, you're losing your customers. And it's
Yeah.
important for business leaders to actually know what are their sales folks doing out in the market. If
Yeah.
this is what your sales pitch is,
Yeah.
that means you need to heavily invest in upskilling and training that person. Because
That's
this
it.
salesperson might be very good at relationship management or other things, but trust me, your elevator pitch was so terrible. This is your gateway. This is your first stepping stone, right? If you're not able to have a good pitch, how are you able to get customers? Definitely, a wrong way to really pitch.
I do all things for all people. I can solve every problem. Which bring me because I want to pivot now because I want to talk about your masterclass and I know you've run one I think late July. Just talk to me a little bit about the purpose of that and what you're endeavoring to do in terms of helping people in the marketplace.
This is my passion. Let me begin with that, which means that I really get emotional in a way, in a positive way. I really get excited. So the name of my masterclass was Aspiring Sales Leaders. And the reason that I started with my masterclass was going through my own experience of wanting to be a sales leader but really running around like a headless chook, not really understanding what to do, what's the next step. I always felt that if I had good performance and good numbers, and my numbers are going to speak for me. So I had all these myths in my head. I actually made a list of all the myths. I believe that your numbers speak for you.
Mhm.
I thought that sales leaders are constantly looking at your growth and they are going to discuss it. They're going to initiate the topic of your promotion, which never happens. I always felt that someone who's very good at numbers is going to be an exceptional leader. And for me personally, settling into another country, I thought it's not for me. I'm going to struggle. I had my own different challenges, some unconscious bias, or you would say some sort of racism in different ways. So, going through all these challenges, myths, my own fears, I later realized as I started to progress towards my career growth, I
Mm.
started to unpack these myths and figured out that this was not the truth. There needs to be a proper strategy. If you want to really climb up the ladders and become a sales leader,
Yeah.
you need the right coaching and mentoring and support,
Mm.
especially if you're struggling. If you're just cracking and going up the ladders and if you've managed it yourself, excellent.
Yeah.
But those who are really wanting and aspiring to be leaders, you need some help and support, particularly with strategies. You
Yeah.
do not want to be struggling and running around, not sure what to do. That's hard. You're wasting time. But the moment you know that, okay, this is the strategy I need to start executing, that's when you get to the masterclass. So that was the whole idea, that I wanted to conduct run a masterclass. I'm passionate about sales leadership, and I really want more and more people to become sales leaders,
Mm.
particularly women. I see very few women in sales leadership. So that was another thing. So yeah, I put together this masterclass. I had a fantastic response. I could see so many people from diverse backgrounds really aspiring to be leaders. So
Yeah.
we covered quite a few topics, and a worksheet and workbook and quite a few activities trying to unpack what were the myths, what it takes to be a leader, what are the barriers that someone faces. We
Mm.
discussed some of those barriers and strategies around how to overcome those barriers.
Mm.
So the outcome was fantastic. There will be some upcoming ones in the what do you say, in the upcoming months, as I said. Yeah.
So if there was, without giving too much away, because it'd be good if people are aspiring leaders, they want to jump on board and get to that. Is there one piece of, I guess, guidance that you could give in relation to maybe a person listening to this right now who has some thoughts that, you know what, I'm a really good salesperson. I've got a track record of performance. I've been thinking about leadership, but I'm not sure that I'm ready for it. Is there one little tidbit or one little piece of guidance or advice that you can give them to help them tip over in terms of, yeah, maybe this is something I can explore, that it's worth progressing to, without giving away the obviously all the special juices, but one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring sales leader who's looking to become a person carrying the responsibility of a team.
Okay, my tip would be, as I said, I covered these myths already. So let
Yeah.
me not repeat about the myths. So I hope that clarifies if people have had doubts. One thing is, you have to be strategic. You have to look at perception management, which is essentially what perception are you creating in the minds. Okay, if your CEO or your leader is looking at considering you for promotion or not, what perception have you created? So, working
Mm.
on yourself is very important. On what impact does someone perceive you to be a leader or not? Think. Okay, and you've asked for one tip, but I'm going to give a second one. Sorry, Darren, but I have to. Is go hire a mentor.
Yeah.
If you have a mentorship program in your organization, fantastic. But if not, you need mentor. When we look at, we had this Olympics, right? So let's talk about sports a bit. So when we look at sports personals, all these sportsmen who go out and perform, they have so many coaches. They
Mm.
have a coach for the actual sport that they are into. They have a for your mental health, physical health, and other things. There is someone for mindfulness. There's someone to help you visualize and stuff. A person hires like seven coaches, right? That's when you get to that peak performance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why it's absolutely important that you hire or find a mentor or a coach who can
Yeah.
take you through the journey.
Yeah. And look, we are biased because we are both coaches, we're both mentors, but it absolutely makes sense, because if you look at every successful business person, sports person, entertainer, they all have mentors. They all have coaches that they work with. A lot of them are not necessarily known, and they don't necessarily stand with them in front of mind with all of the accolades and so forth, but they're certainly the backbone of helping these people become exceptional at what they do. I also like you mentioned perception management. This is a lot about creating the impressions and thinking about what is the perception, what is the impression that I want to create, what's my personal brand, what do I want to be known for, right? And what do I stand for? And then you start to become that. So it's not faking it, but it's starting to act as if, because I say to aspiring sales leaders all the time, you can't wait for the opportunity to land in your lap because it'll be too late. You need to be prepared for when the opportunity does arrive, and starting to think about what does a sales leadership role mean to you? How do you need to start acting as if you were a sales leader? And from my own experience, I spent 2 years building a philosophy around sales leadership before I was given the opportunity of actually leading a team. But it meant that when the opportunity did present itself, I was ready because I'd done the work, right? And
Absolutely.
I could easily, and it wasn't an easy transition still, but I was prepared. So perception management is a key thing. So absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So awesome.
So, Darren, this is your 700th episode,
It is.
and I want to be in the other seat and going to ask you questions.
Oh, we're
Okay.
gonna flip the script. Okay, I was
Yes,
just
let's
going to
do
wind
that.
up, but you've taken over now, so that's all good.
First of all, a big congratulations. 700 is a big number. It's a big feat. I'm sure it's been a long journey for you. My first question to you is, how does it
How does
feel?
it feel? Well, it's actually funny. I was thinking about this today, and when you think about the number 700, you think, man, that's a lot. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of microphones. That's a lot of bandwidth that's been used on my computer to upload to the various podcasting platforms. But it feels really good. It feels really satisfying because I started this 4 years ago, and I never thought, never imagined that I would get to, well, 100 episodes, let alone to 700. So it actually doesn't feel like 700. So you can very easily get overwhelmed with that number, but it's probably like a sales campaign. It's just one episode after another. It's the next episode, it's the next call, it's the next conversation, and constantly looking to refine it and to improve. What it has done is it's helped me with my communication. So that's one of the biggest things. Not only do I get to talk to really interesting people like yourself, but it's also helped me to articulate what I stand for in my messaging and so forth. So it's yeah, feeling really good, feeling really proud in terms of what we've been able to do.
Absolutely, you have to be proud. 700 is a big number, so well done. And the other question I had for you is, what actually triggered that you thought, oh, I have to start a podcast?
Well, an interesting story. I'd been following a podcaster out of the States since 2010. And he's a podcasting coach. So he podcasts and he teaches others how to podcast as well. And he was saying for years that every single person, whether they're a business owner or a corporate person, salesperson, sales leader, should have a podcast, right? Because it's enabling, it's a platform. So you talk about doing speeches, doing presentations, it's a platform to help you improve your communication. So I, for many years, was saying, yeah, I'm gonna get there. It shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I didn't want to end up saying, well, but I didn't. So when COVID hit in 2020, I said, well, there's no excuses now. A lot of my workshops that I was doing were cancelled overnight. And so, okay, what am I going to do now? Well, I've got a mobile phone. I've said I wanted to do a podcast. So start. So I did. So
Wow,
April the 1st, 2020 was my first. And yeah, fast forward 4 years and we're doing 700 today. So
amazing.
um, that's what was the catalyst. I'd always wanted to do one, and look, there's lots and lots of podcasts out there, and probably one of the things we talk a lot about in sales is staying in the game.
Mhm.
And if you look at podcast statistics, there's a very high percentage of people who start a podcast but never continue a podcast. And in fact, there's millions of podcasts available on all the different platforms, but a very high percentage of them have not been updated in the last 90 days. So the ones that are continuing to get updated, and it's not about the downloads or the audience numbers, it's about longevity, and it's about constant content. And irrespective of the download numbers, because there's different metrics for that, if you're recording podcasts on a regular basis, you're in a very, very small percentage of podcasters around the world. So that's
Wow.
another interesting fact that I wasn't aware of.
That's amazing. But trust me, from the time I've been listening to sales podcasts and when I came across yours, I have been a fan. Trust me, and I'm not lying, but this is really true. The quality of the content is important. That's when you're going to have repeat customers, right?
Mm,
That's what I really like about your podcast. The kind of guests that you bring and the discussions, the questions that you ask. Amazing. It's every podcast, every story that you listen to, there's so much to learn.
yeah,
And everyone that I talk to, I highly recommend your podcast just because of the learning that someone gets. Is
yeah.
amazing. So well done. Probably I'll ask you the
Thank you.
last question.
Appreciate that. No, thank you. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah, so my last question to you is any memorable ones, or which is your best one of the 700 or most memorable?
Is this Dipti, is this a loaded question? Because episode 683 was the first one with you. Episode 700 is the next one with you.
No, not just me. I'm just asking you to say one. Well, if you want to avoid, that's okay. But I thought,
Well, it's almost like, well, when you're asked the question, who is your favorite child?
oh,
What I will say is, and I don't want to suffer from primacy recency effect, but over the last couple of weeks, I've had the privilege of speaking to some really, really cool people, and one in particular that comes to mind is a guy called Ryan Tuckwood, and Ryan is the CEO and founder of Swish Sales Coaching. He's considered the number one sales coach in Australia. He's been on Shark Tank, spent a bit of time with Richard Branson recently on Necker Island as part of a small group of people. And one of the things he shared with me after the podcast, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but it's more of an experience that he had going through and associating with different people. And it's the power of proximity, but also aligning yourself with people. The lesson I learned from him is he was talking to a number of people who had exited their business, and these were entrepreneurs. But the lesson that he got was happiness is the number one thing. That many of these people who had exited their businesses had a bucket load of money, but they weren't happy because of the sacrifices they had to make and maybe the relationships that were broken along the way because they were in the pursuit of the outcome. And he shared that story after we'd finished recording, and it just really resonated to the point where that's going to stick with me in terms of you can have all the great accolades, you can have all the great, the great clients and the great income and all the bank accounts and the fast cars and whatever you want to have, everybody to themselves. But at the end of the day, if you're not happy and if you're not satisfied, what's it for? So that really left a mark on me. So
wonderful. No,
mm,
thank you. That's amazing.
awesome. Any other questions you'd like to ask me as we wrap up?
You know how talkative I am, and you are as well, so we can go on, but all good.
No, that's fine. So, hey, may I thank you again? This has been another fabulous conversation. Congratulations on what you're doing in the industry. Keep up the fantastic work. If there was one final little gift they'd like to give people in terms of some advice, some wisdom to either the aspiring sales leader or a sales leader that's going to help them on their journey to become exceptional, what would that be?
I always talk about fire in the belly. So make sure that if you're not having fire in the belly or that grit determination, it's hard to achieve the goal. So
Mm,
if you're not sure how to really have the fire in the belly, then you need to really find the calling and the purpose. So my last wish or message to everyone would be is that be very focused on the purpose because that's going to drive that fire, the grit, determination, and then success is not too far ahead. It's achievable, but be clear, have that purpose. And if you aspire for something, it's absolutely possible. Just
it
go
is.
for it.
And do the work. Do the work.
Yeah, do the work. That'll all
Awesome.
action, clarity, purpose.
Absolutely. So, Dipti, absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. We're going to have to do this a third time and keep up the magnificent work. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on episode number 700 of the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
Thank you so much, Darren. And first of all, it's been such a pleasure. 700. Thank you so much for the 700, the special one. I wish you all the very best. You've been doing amazing work. And hopefully, I look forward to coming on the 7,000th episode as well at some point.
No pressure. Love it. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.